If your toddler falls apart over something tiny after a long day at home, it is easy to think the reaction came out of nowhere. Maybe the wrong cup appears at dinner, cleanup starts too suddenly, pajamas feel impossible, or a toy stops working, and suddenly your child is crying like the whole day has collapsed. From the outside, it can look dramatic, but sometimes the meltdown is not really about that one small trigger. Sometimes it is about what your child's nervous system has been carrying all day. A 2025 study in Frontiers in Psychology looked at this kind of family pattern. Zhu and colleagues studied 940 Chinese preschool migrant children and their families, examining household chaos, parent-child conflict, mindful parenting, and children's self-regulation. They found that household chaos was linked with lower self-regulation in preschool children, and that parent-child conflict helped explain that connection. In other words, chaos in the home was not only related to children's regulation directly, it was also related to more conflict between parent and child, and that conflict was connected to poorer self-regulation. The study also found that mindful parenting could be protective, but when parent-child conflict became higher, that protective effect became weaker. This kind of study does not prove that household chaos directly causes poor self-regulation, but it gives parents a useful way to look at daily meltdowns. The environment may be part of what the child is trying to regulate. The main idea here is the conflict pathway. A chaotic home does not only affect a toddler because it is messy or loud. It can also create more tense moments between parent and child. The parent is already overloaded, the child is already close to the edge, and then a normal request becomes a battle. The child resists, the parent reacts, the child escalates, and suddenly the problem is no longer just the original instruction. The conflict itself becomes part of what the child has to recover from. This is why some toddlers seem to fall apart over nothing. The final trigger may be small, but the load underneath it is not. You can see this most clearly in the evening. A parent is trying to cook, the room is noisy, toys are still out, a message needs answering, someone is asking for something, and the toddler is already tired or hungry. Then a simple instruction appears: come wash your hands, put the blocks away, stop running, get your pajamas. The instruction may be reasonable, but it lands inside a moment that is already overloaded. The toddler is not only responding to the words. They are responding to the whole atmosphere around the words. That does not make the parent wrong. Most families are not chaotic because parents do not care. They are chaotic because real life is full. People work, cook, clean, answer messages, handle siblings, manage money stress, live in small spaces, and try to get through the day with limited support. A home can be loving and still be overstimulating. A parent can be trying hard and still have a rhythm that asks too much of a toddler's nervous system. That is why this topic should not be used to shame parents. It should be used to understand patterns. When a child is asked to regulate inside a loud, rushed, unpredictable environment, their behavior may start to look louder, faster, and more unpredictable too. A toddler does not have an adult brain that can filter background noise, organize a messy room, track time, handle hunger, understand future plans, and stay calm while adults are rushing. Their body often reacts before they can explain what is happening. This is where many parents reach for discipline before looking at the setup. They try a firmer voice, a warning, a consequence, or a longer explanation, but the child may already be too overloaded to use that information well. The issue is not that boundaries are unnecessary. Boundaries matter. The issue is that boundaries land better when the environment gives the child some chance to process them. For example, if cleanup always becomes a fight, the problem may not only be that the child refuses to clean. The room may be too overwhelming, the toys may be too many, the instruction may be too broad, and the transition may be starting too late. A toddler hearing clean up while looking at a room full of mixed toys may not see one simple task. They may see something impossible, and once the parent becomes frustrated, the cleanup is no longer only a task. It becomes a conflict. A small change in the setup can change the whole interaction. Fewer toys out at once, one clear starting point, or a parent saying, "Let's put the blocks in first," can reduce the load before the battle starts. That is not permissive parenting. It is making the task understandable enough that the child can cooperate. The same thing happens with bedtime. A child who becomes wild before bed may not simply be refusing sleep. They may be moving from a noisy room, Bright lights, active play, adult rushing, and repeated instructions straight into the hardest separation of the day. If the hour before bed stays loud and unpredictable, the child's body may still be speeding up while the parent is demanding that it slow down. In that situation, the solution is not always another bedtime consequence. Sometimes the better move is to lower the house before the routine begins, reduce background noise, make the order predictable, start earlier, and stop stacking too many demands at the moment the child is already exhausted. The point is not to create a perfect routine. The point is to stop asking a dysregulated child to become calm inside a dysregulating rhythm. This is the part of the 2025 study that is so useful. It did not only look at household chaos and child self-regulation. It also looked at parent-child conflict as part of the pathway. That matters because conflict can become the emotional amplifier inside the home. A little chaos creates stress. The stress creates more parent-child tension, and that tension makes it even harder for the child to regulate. Mindful parenting helped in the study, but its protective effect became weaker when conflict was higher, which suggests that calm parenting skills are harder to use when the home is constantly tense. That is a more realistic message than simply telling parents to be calmer. A parent can know all the right words and still struggle if every part of the day is rushed, noisy, and full of conflict. A toddler can have a loving parent and still struggle if the daily rhythm never gives their body time to come down. So the practical question is not, how do I become perfectly calm? The better question is, where does our home rhythm create the most conflict, and how can I lower the pressure there first? This question keeps the focus on one pattern instead of blaming the whole family. Maybe the pressure point is dinner. The child is hungry, the parent is busy, and every request turns into whining. In that case, the first change might be a small, predictable snack, a simple job near the parent, or reducing noise before the meal. Maybe the pressure point is leaving the house. The child is expected to find shoes, stop playing, put on a coat, and move quickly while the adult is already stressed. In that case, the first change might be preparing the environment before the child is asked to cooperate. Maybe the pressure point is bedtime. The child's body is still running fast, and the parent is trying to force calm too late. In that case, the change may need to happen before bedtime officially starts. The exact solution depends on the family, but the principle is the same. Reduce the load before demanding regulation. This is not about removing every challenge from a child's life. Children need to learn flexibility, waiting, cleanup, transitions, and boundaries. But toddlers learn those skills better when the environment gives them enough structure to practice. If the environment is constantly overwhelming, the child may spend most of their energy surviving the moment instead of learning from it. One helpful way to think about this is to look at timing. If your child melts down once, it may simply be a hard moment. If they melt down every day at the same time, in the same room, during the same transition, or after the same kind of rushed interaction, that is information. The behavior may be pointing to the part of the day where the home rhythm is too hard for them to manage. That kind of pattern is useful because it gives parents somewhere to start. You do not have to fix the whole house. You do not have to become a perfectly mindful parent overnight. You do not have to make every room quiet and organized. It is usually more realistic to choose one repeated conflict and make that moment easier to move through. If cleanup is the conflict, make cleanup smaller and clearer. If dinner is the conflict, soften the transition into dinner. If bedtime is the conflict, slow the house down before the routine begins. Small changes matter because they happen before the meltdown, not after. Once a toddler is already screaming, the parent has fewer options. Before the meltdown, the environment can still be adjusted. The instruction can be shorter. The noise can be lower. The task can be broken into one step. The transition can be made more predictable. The parent can move closer instead of shouting from another room. These are not magic tricks, but they reduce the amount of conflict the child has to regulate through. This is also where mindful parenting makes more sense. Mindful parenting is not just about being calm in a beautiful, quiet room. It is about noticing what is happening before the reaction takes over. It means noticing that your child always loses it when cleanup starts too late, or that you become sharper when dinner is rushed, or that the screen ending creates the same fight every night. Once you see the pattern, you can change the setup instead of only reacting to the explosion. That is the difference between managing behavior and understanding regulation. Managing behavior often starts after the problem appears. Understanding regulation asks what the child was carrying before the problem appeared. If your toddler keeps falling apart over tiny things, it may help to ask what their nervous system has been carrying that day. Was the day loud, rushed, unpredictable, conflict-heavy, full of transitions, or short on connection? Were they hungry, tired, overstimulated, or moving through a pace that was too fast for them? These questions do not excuse every behavior, but they make the behavior easier to understand and often easier to prevent. If this happens in your home, tell me in the comments which part of the day creates the most conflict with your child. Is it getting out the door, dinner, cleanup, bath time, bedtime, or the moment screens turn off? That answer usually shows where the home rhythm is putting the most pressure on your child, and it may be the best place to start. And if you want more parenting videos that turn research into practical everyday decisions, subscribe, because many toddler behaviors make more sense when we stop looking only at the child and start looking at the pattern around them. The main thing to remember is this: toddlers regulate better when the home rhythm is more predictable, conflict is not constant, and the environment gives their nervous system a chance to come back down.